A struggling single mom faces daily humiliation at her job, until an undercover CEO steps in. What happens next changes her life, her son's future, and the entire diner community forever. Clara pressed her back against the cold brick wall outside Marlowe's diner. Her apron still damp from the coffee a customer had dumped on her moments before. She wiped at the spill, her hands trembling more from frustration than the burn. At 33, she was used to long shifts and empty pockets, working 3 jobs to keep her son, Ethan, fed and housed. But tonight, the humiliation cut deeper than fatigue. "Maybe if you weren't so clumsy, you wouldn't be stuck serving people like me," sneered a man at the counter. Clara's chest tightened. She wanted to answer, to defend herself, but she couldn't risk losing her job. Her son's overdue school lunch and the mounting bills were constant reminders. Inside, the diner hummed with the low chatter of tired patrons. One man in a corner booth watched quietly. Dressed in simple clothes, he seemed ordinary, but his eyes followed every movement of Clara's, noting the way she handled the spilled coffee with careful precision, the way she smiled politely even as her hands shook. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. The man, Jonathan Reed, had been coming to diners across the city, not as a customer, but as a silent observer, trying to understand places he might one day invest in. And tonight, he had witnessed something that made him pause. Inside Marlowe's diner, Clara moved from table to table, refilling coffee and taking orders with practiced efficiency. Her movements were precise, almost automatic, but her heart still pounded from the earlier humiliation. Jonathan Reed sat quietly in the corner booth, sipping his black coffee. To anyone else, he was just another customer. But he had been observing Clara for weeks, noting how she carried herself under pressure, how she treated every patron with respect, even the difficult ones. Tonight, his attention was fully on her. He watched as the same man, Mr. Harris, leaned over the counter again, smirking. "Hurry up and try not to spill anything this time," he sneered. The few other customers shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Clara's hands shook as she poured another cup, careful to avoid any further accidents. Her mind raced. She needed this job, but every insult and condescending glance felt like a weight pressing down on her. Jonathan's jaw tightened. He had seen the pattern. The spilled drinks, the mocking comments, the way Mr. Harris seemed to take pleasure in her discomfort. Something inside him stirred, a mix of anger and resolve. He knew he couldn't just sit back any longer. Clara approached Mr. Harris's table with a fresh cup of coffee, her shoulders tight with tension. She forced a polite smile, even as her hands trembled. "Finally," he muttered, his tone sharp. "About time someone actually does their job." The other patrons glanced nervously at him, but no one spoke. Clara's throat tightened. She wanted to snap back, but losing this job was not an option. Jonathan Reed rose from his corner booth, his steps slow and deliberate. The diner seemed to fall silent as he walked toward the table, his eyes fixed on Mr. Harris. "I've been watching you," Jonathan said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable weight. "For weeks, I've seen how you treat this woman. You think it's harmless, but it isn't." Mr. Harris scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Who are you, some kind of watchdog? Mind your own business." Jonathan didn't flinch. "No, this is my business now. You need to understand that everyone in this diner has a story, struggles, and dreams. Just like you. Using your pain as an excuse to hurt someone else is not acceptable." Clara froze, staring at him, hope and disbelief warring in her eyes. For the first time in months, someone was defending her dignity. Mr. Harris's face reddened with anger. "Who do you think you are, talking to me like that? You're just some nobody." Jonathan remained calm, meeting his gaze steadily. "Maybe I am nobody to you, but I know the difference between strength and cruelty. And you are choosing the latter." He reached into his wallet and placed a crisp $100 bill on the table. Consider this your meals for the next month. But there's a condition. You start treating everyone here with respect, or you find somewhere else to eat." The diner was silent. Clara's hands shook, but now with relief rather than fear. Tears pricked her eyes as she realized someone had finally seen her struggle and stood up for her. Mr. Harris, stunned and embarrassed, muttered under his breath and stormed out, leaving the bill behind. The few remaining customers exchanged awkward glances, but a quiet calm settled over the diner. Clara set the coffee pot down, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." Jonathan offered a gentle smile. "You don't have to say anything. You've been handling this for weeks on your own. Sometimes, enduring isn't the same as having to endure alone." After the diner quieted down, Jonathan gestured toward his corner booth. "Could we talk for a few minutes?" Clara hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen where the cook pretended not to watch. She nodded and followed him, her hands still trembling slightly. Sitting across from her, Jonathan leaned back and spoke gently. "I should probably tell you the truth. I'm not just a customer. My name is Jonathan Reed, and I run a company that invests in small businesses. I've been coming here for weeks to understand this diner, and what I've seen has been remarkable." Clara blinked, a mix of confusion and skepticism on her face. "Invest in this diner?" "Yes," he said, "but not in the way you might fear. I've seen how hard you work, how you care for every customer, even the difficult ones, all while managing your own struggles. You've shown me something that no business plan could ever teach, what it means to lead with heart." Clara's chest tightened. She had faced months of fear that her job might vanish under another corporate takeover. Now she struggled to process what he was saying. "I want to buy this diner," Jonathan continued, "but I want to do it differently. I want to make it a place that truly honors the community. And I want you to be part of that. More than just an employee. I want you as a partner." Clara stared at him, disbelief and hope warring in her eyes. "A partner? I don't know anything about running a business." "You know more than you think," Jonathan said softly. "You understand people. You know how to make them feel valued, safe, and welcome. Those are the skills that truly matter here." Jonathan reached into his wallet again and handed Clara a simple card. "This is more than a job offer. It's a partnership. You'll help me run the diner, shaping it into a place where staff and customers alike feel valued. Fair wages, health care, profit sharing, even support for employees' children. Everything will be part of this." Clara's hands shook as she held the card, her mind racing. I don't know if I can do this. I've never run anything before." Jonathan's gaze was steady and reassuring. "You've been running something far more important than a business. People's experiences. You've shown patience, kindness, and leadership every day without realizing it. That's exactly what this diner needs." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. She looked at Jonathan, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why me?" "Because anyone can manage numbers," he said softly. "But not everyone has the heart to see people the way you do. You understand the value of dignity, of respect, and of community. That is rare and invaluable." For the first time in months, Clara felt a shift inside her. The fear and exhaustion were still there, but they were now mingled with hope, a hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. 6 months later, Clara stood in the bright, welcoming dining room of what was now called Clara's Corner. The old vinyl booths had been replaced with comfortable seating, and warm lights bathed the space in a cozy glow. Local artwork decorated the walls, including a colorful painting by her son, Ethan, of the garden outside the diner. Clara watched as Ethan carefully arranged fresh flowers on each table. Her heart swelled seeing him part of the place that had become their new beginning. The staff bustled efficiently but happily. 2 other single mothers, once struggling to make ends meet, now earned fair wages and health care. A retired teacher worked part-time, teaching after-school programs to children of employees. Teenagers saved for college with the help of the diner's education fund. Clara had discovered her natural talent for leading and inspiring people, skills Jonathan had recognized long before she did. She had developed new menu specials, organized events for the community, and ensured every customer felt welcome. Jonathan still came by regularly, but now he sat at the counter, letting Clara serve him coffee while they discussed future plans. The diner had become a true community hub, filled with laughter, conversations, and shared meals. Clara remembered the cold night outside the diner when she had felt invisible, humiliated, and exhausted. She thought about how one act of kindness, one person seeing her worth, had changed everything, not just for her but for everyone who walked through those doors. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and took a deep breath, watching Ethan help an elderly couple to their favorite window table. The chatter, laughter, and clinking of plates filled the diner, a sound she had once thought she would never hear again. Jonathan appeared beside her, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Thought you might need a refill," he said with a small smile. Clara accepted the cup, her eyes scanning the room. "It's incredible how everything can change in just a moment," she murmured. "One person deciding to care, to stand up, it can change everything." Jonathan nodded. "Exactly. And that's what you do every day. You create those ripples. Every act of kindness, every bit of patience, every decision to see someone's worth, it spreads farther than you realize." Clara smiled, tears welling but warm, not bitter. She looked at Ethan and saw his bright eyes, his laughter mingling with the customers' voices. She realized that the moment Jonathan had stepped in that night didn't just protect her dignity, it gave her the chance to build something that mattered, for her son, and for the community. The diner had become more than a place to eat. It was a hub of hope, respect, and connection. Clara knew that sometimes the simplest acts, standing up for someone, offering compassion, could ripple outward in ways that transformed lives. She glanced at Jonathan. "Thank you for seeing me." He smiled softly. "You didn't need me to see you. You've always been remarkable. I just made sure the world finally noticed." And in that moment, Clara understood that hope, kindness, and dignity weren't just ideals. They were the building blocks of change, and she had become their living proof. If this story inspired you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you.